came here to live, love, and laugh. Remember your soul, not your past. You can't start from nothing. What you learn is what you get. Even when you can't see, there's a big world turning around you and me. You'll see it all if you open your heart and be the colors of love. Red sky above, bluebirds, yellow seas, purple hearts, orange trees, rainbows of love for you and me. Be grateful for what you've been given. So many love and cherish you. And when you're lost, just open your heart and be colors of love. Red sky above, bluebirds, yellow seas, purple moons, orange trees, rainbows of love. You don't need the answers. You don't even need to believe. Just look all around you. Find your colors in the breeze. Yeah, the colors of love. The colors of love. Red sky above, bluebirds, yellow seas, purple moon, orange trees, rainbows of love, the colors of love. Red sky above, bluebirds, yellow seas, purple moons, orange trees, rainbows of love for you and me.
So I found unity, as a lot of you know, in Toronto. I was in Canada for a while. And then I got hired to do a show in Miami, and so I became part of the Unity on the Bay. Have anybody ever been to Unity on the Bay? Beautiful, gorgeous church right there. As a matter of fact, you could see it in the opening credits of Miami Vice. Yeah, Google it or something, because it's in the very beginning, and it's kind of nighttime. It says Unity on this huge tower that they have. Beautiful. And you come out and you see water and the gardenias. I mean, it's really just heavenly there. It's just a beautiful place. And I was going there for a little while. I was asking that question, what is unity? because I was fairly new and I wanted to see what people were saying about what they thought unity was. And one woman said, you know, the great thing about unity is it's whatever you want it to be. And I hadn't been around that long, but I knew that was not really the truth. That was not really the answer. I thought it was an interesting perspective. But later I found it was quite inconclusive, as it were. Unity leaves individuals to believe what they like, what their own path is about. But we do have definite teachings, even though it is not dogmatic. We find there are 5 teachings because we tend to agree that these 5 basic teachings resonate with our heart. The first one is, who knows the first one? Good Unity students. He was reading that. But I know you know that, Gary.
God is good.
God is good. God is absolute good. God is not a person in the sky. God is not an old white man with a beard. God is the principle of love, of joy, of peace, of any and every good we can imagine, and more. And number 2, because God is good and we are created from this good energy, we are good. You were born in original blessing, not original sin. No such thing as original sin. You were born perfect with everything that you need within you to have the kind of life you'd like to have. Number 3, because we are made in the image and likeness of love, peace, good, and joy, we have the power to create as our Creator has created us. We do that with our thoughts. We sing every morning. Our thoughts are prayers. Our words are prayers. My feelings are prayers. Every action I take is a prayer. My life is a prayer. And what is prayer? Prayer is affirmatively knowing that I am good. Prayer is not begging for some God out there to change my life. Prayer is affirming my life is what I want it to be. I am healthy and whole. Together. I am healthy and whole. I am prosperous. I am prosperous. I am filled with peace. I am filled with peace. Breathe that in. That's prayer, is knowing I am one with God. And number 5, I like to word it a little different than unity. Unity says, it's not enough to know it, just do it. Well, that's Nike. It's a Nike commercial. Mine is, life is a celebration, move forward because the party is happening. The party is already happening, you've already been invited. How do I know? Because you're here. You're here, you're invited to the party, but it's a buffet, you have to go up and get it. Okay? Helen and Kathy are not going to bring the food over to you. They put it out there, but you got to go get it. We made the coffee this morning. I'm not going to bring it to you. It's right there for you. So that is unity in a nutshell. God is good. You are good. You have the power to create your life. Celebrate it and do it. In a nutshell, we are the original positive thinking, positive living church. Now, I've shared with you that I found unity back in the early 80s as a result of having a spiritual awakening, or what Abraham Maslow, the innovative psychologist, calls a peak experience. You may recall, if you were here, that I was blinded by light. I thought I was having a stroke. I thought I was dying. I was just being awakened. I heard God say, not in words so much as in feelings and impulses, that I was God's creation, and I was here on the planet to do God's work, as we all are. When you come onto the spiritual path, you become a minister, whether you like it or not. You are here to share the truth by love, by listening, by being present. This spiritual awakening happened at a time when I was feeling fairly low in my life. I was living in Canada, which is lovely. It's a lovely country. It was very cold, but it was a lovely country. And I was doing a musical I really didn't like. Today I appreciate the show that I was doing because it brought me here. I didn't feel like I was making much progress in my career or my life, even though we were sold out for 6 months in a row. I was making good money and I got good reviews. It wasn't enough. And I didn't know what more I wanted. I was at a crossroads in my life. Who was I? Where am I? What am I doing on the planet? Why can't Canada give me real bacon? Have you had that? It's like, oh my gosh. Like little pieces of tough ham. It's like, that's not bacon. So everything was just falling apart for me at that moment. But ever since I was a child, I felt this planet was just too bizarre to sustain a person like me. I felt so overly sensitive to everything. Today I realize that I'm an empath, that this is part of who I am, and this is part of the gift that I have. But back then I was just overwhelmed by life all the time. As a child, I was accused of living in another world. They actually took me to a doctor to see if I was mentally okay. I always heard, get your head out of those books, stop daydreaming, come back to earth. And my question was, why? And they never had an answer for me. They just couldn't answer me. What makes it better out there than being in here? I like it better in here. This is more fun. Lily Tomlin has a wonderful character named Trudy the Bag Lady. Trudy has a great philosophy. It's very unity. She says, I refuse to be intimidated by reality anymore. After all, what is reality but a collective hunch? My guess is reality was once a primitive form of crowd control that got out of hand. In my studies, I find that reality is the leading cause of stress among those in touch with it. I can take it in small doses, but as a lifestyle, I find it too confining. I was Trudy the Bag Lady when I was 8 years old. That's exactly the way I felt. But when I had that peak experience, when I was awakened to the truth of my spiritual nature, I had a new understanding of what that reality really was. It wasn't the one of the worldly limits where we are told we have to suffer. We have to work hard to make it any good at all, but we're not told just how much we have to do to earn our good. We're told, make sure you get yours first, define yourself by somebody else's definition of success. Reality became the place within, where the truth of God is always being revealed, but we have to take time to go there. We have to take time to listen to the voice within and not to the voices outside of us. As I consciously began to travel that new spiritual path, it was very exciting. Remember when you first got onto the path? It's just, everything was so available. So I tried Unity. I went to course Science of Mind. I even tried Crystal Science for a little bit. Joel Goldsmith is still one of my great teachers today. Edgar Cayce, Yogananda, Hinduism, Buddhism, and many, many other spiritual teachings I had no idea were even out there. Now, some I dismissed immediately because it didn't work for me, because I just didn't resonate with it. I didn't call it bad. I didn't call it anything. I just said, that was interesting, and I'm happy it worked for others. Some I used to formulate my own belief system. Some things I took, and other things I left. One of the teachings that has had a really interesting history that I have found a lot of use from, and even within the Unity movement, is A Course in Miracles. Now, how many people here have read A Course in Miracles? Okay. How many people have not? How many people of those who've read it understand it?
Yeah, mostly.
Right.
In the beginning, no.
Every Sunday we come.
I had a friend who tried to read A Course in Miracles 5 times, and each time he threw the book away. Until he got it the 6th time, he said, okay, I got it. When the book first became big in the metaphysical world, a lot of people in Unity were using it. In the late 70s, a Unity minister, a dear friend of mine named Sig Paulson, presented a seminar called Unity, A Course in Miracles in You, and it was very popular. It soon became a popular misconception in a lot of Unity centers that A Course in Miracles was sanctified by Unity Village, by Unity School, and the Board of Trustees. It became so confusing for some people about what was Unity and what was Course in Miracles that the board took a really drastic step and they excluded it from the bookstore. They excluded it from being any part of Unity at all. And there was a policy created of not discussing it anywhere on campus. But a lot of churches continued to teach it. Some of them as separate study groups, and interestingly enough, a lot of ministers began to incorporate it into the services. So finally, I think it was about 9 or 10 years ago, the board voted to allow the course to be taught at Unity Village as a supplemental teaching that shows that it doesn't conflict with the basic tenets of what we teach here at Unity. So if you haven't heard of it or you haven't done the work, what is the big deal about A Course in Miracles? I'm going to fill you in a little bit of background in case you're unfamiliar with it, and even if you've been doing it for a while, you may not know the history of what happened. Course in Miracles is a book. We have a couple back there if you are interested in picking it up. It's made up of 3 parts. There's a textbook, there's a workbook with lessons for every day of the year, and there's a teacher's manual. Now the book was channeled through a woman named Helen Schuckman. Helen was a professor of medical psychology at Columbia Presbyterian Medical Center in New York. And she wasn't getting along at all with the head of the department. His name was William Thetford. Helen was overcritical and very judgmental, and nothing was ever good enough for Helen. And William was a very quiet, shy, passive-aggressive individual who found Helen insufferable. You can imagine what a wonderful relationship was going on there. They didn't get along at all, to the point where it was just miserable for both of them to be in the same room together. One day, William confronted Helen and said, "This isn't working. This is just not working. I'm tired of being angry and upset with you. There's got to be a better way to do this." She agreed, and she was open to working on the problem, trying to figure out a solution. They didn't know how, but they were willing to work on it. You know what happens when you're open and receptive to letting a challenge be healed? The healing actually shows up. God had an opening to work with. My spiritual awakening happened when I said there has to be something more than what's going on in my life right now. When Helen said, "I'm willing to heal this," the universe rushed in to begin the healing process. She began to have dreams, and she began getting images that she just couldn't interpret. Not long after the dreams began, she began to hear an inner voice. Again, like me, not so much in words, but in a rush of information. And then one day she actually did hear a voice. And the voice said, "This is a Course in Miracles, please take notes." And she's like, "Seriously?" She ignored it for as long as she could. Go away, stop it. But it wouldn't shut up. It kept saying the same thing over and over again. "This is a Course in Miracles, please take notes." She went to her colleague William and said, "What should I do?" And William said, "Take notes." So she would write, she knew shorthand. She would get this rapid fire dictation, and she would just write it all down. Then she would read it to William, and William would type it up. 7 years after that, the book was completed. From October 1965 to October 1972, they would take whatever time they had during work to actually do some more work on the book. She could interrupt the voice, she said. Even a week or 2 weeks later, it would immediately begin at the point where they had left off. One day, the two of them met a couple named Judy and Robert Scutch. And they felt comfortable enough to share with them, "Here's the book we're working on." The Scutches created the Foundation for Inner Peace to publish the book, and it's been published in, I think, almost 24 languages now. And over 2 million copies are in print. Now, Helen Schuckman passed on in 1981. She once described herself as a psychologist and educator, conservative in theory and atheistic in belief. When she was writing the book, she never felt comfortable with it and tried to stop it a few times. She said, this is just weird. This is freaking me out. Anybody ever been freaked out by spirit coming through? It's like, okay, that's just a little overwhelming right now. You need to stop. But of course, it doesn't. The interesting thing is it never changed her belief system. She remained atheistic until the very end. She didn't even understand it. She was writing it out. William was typing it, and he says, that's right. She says, I guess so. I don't understand it. And she completely disavowed it before passing away. But in this country alone, we have hundreds and hundreds of groups that meet to share this teaching with each other. And many have found healing through the application of the principles in it. Course in Miracles was one of the most profound teachings that I used when I became a truth student. I did it solidly for about a year and a half. My dear friend Carlos introduced me to it, and he was the facilitator of the first group I attended. That evening, he read the first page to us. The opposite of love is fear, but what is all-encompassing can have no opposite. This course can be therefore summed up in this way. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. I think if there's one I had that actually framed for a long time, just so I can remember that truth. Nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. And this is the essence of who and what God is. Of course, growing up in the Baptist church, I'd hear the Bible verse, perfect love casts out fear. But that night, hearing that was the first time I heard the opposite of love is fear. If we can get that truth, we've got it. If we can really own that truth and live that truth, we have all the scripture, we have all of Course in Miracles, we've got all of unity. If I'm not living from a place of pure divine love, if I'm not living my life in compassion and seeing you as a child of God as well, that means I have more work to do. I need to release that fear somehow. That I've lived in a world created by that fear and that separation. And fear has many names, as we know. It has anger, hatred, envy, indifference, self-doubt. Just a few. Fear robs us of so much. Fear robs us of our health. Worry breaks down our immune system. Faster and more complete than any disease, any virus, any bacteria ever could. Fear paralyzes us in not doing what we desire to do. To put off accepting God's good for us. Well, what if I have to change? Oh my God, I can't do that. What if I have to move? Are you willing to give up one good to have a greater good? That's one thing we always have to ask ourselves. Am I willing to give up the good that I have now for a greater, more expanded, more exciting life? John Steinbeck wrote, power doesn't corrupt, fear corrupts. It's what makes us do weird things. True power comes from spirit. True power is the love of God at work. Fear thinks the power will be taken away. In truth, I can't have anybody take my power away. I can only reject it. Do we get that? Do we understand? I can only reject my power. Nobody's taking it from me. If I'm not coming from a consciousness of love and compassion, then I'm living my life in fear. I'm living my life choosing to keep the power and the good of God away from me. After that evening at the Course in Miracles group, I began to see just how much of my life was determined and chosen from a place of fear rather than love. Fear of success, fear of failure, fear of being alone, fear of being tied down, fear there wasn't a God, fear there was a God. There's a lot of fear going on there. But until we come face to face with it, we don't know because we keep running away from it. Everything, when we refuse to claim our divine power, every thought becomes a fear-based one. And we wonder why life isn't working. So I learned from Course in Miracles that a miracle wasn't some great trick that God used to show how big and strong he was. A miracle is the result of knowing God is my reality. A miracle is the natural outpicturing of divine law at work. Divine law is God's love. That's it. What's God's will for you? That you're happy, that you're joyful, that you're living a life of creative excitement. Miracles are simply God's natural law expressing in a way that we don't know how that works. The very word miracle comes from the Latin word to wonder, to be awestruck. Isn't that great? We go, oh. Television is the miracle. I mean, you look, 1,000 channels. You flick through 1,000 channels. Something different on every, and there's nothing on.
Yes.
A miracle. How can all those people in Congress meet and never agree on anything and the country's still here? It's a miracle. How can somebody abuse their bodies with drugs, alcohol, tobacco, poor diet, little negative attitude and still be alive? It's a miracle. Those of us who lived through the druggy 60s and 70s, isn't it a miracle we're here? How did I survive that? Now you may be asking, what is the problem that Unity did have with the Course in Miracles? What makes it different from what we teach in Unity? The point of departure from Unity with Course in Miracles, as I see it, is the belief of ego. In Unity, we believe that the ego is part of our reality here on the planet. The Course teaches that it's illusion, that it really doesn't exist pretty much at all. In Unity, we believe that everything has its place, that we have this ego for a reason. And the ego for us in Unity is the vehicle. It's like having a car. That my ego drives me, I get to drive my ego, or is my ego driving me? The ego is actually neutral. It's neither good nor bad. It simply is a thing that I get to use. The Course says it isn't really seen as real, and that's a different perspective. That would be, I think, mainly where our teaching divides. Our Course is a little more absolutist in its philosophy. And as a system of teaching, I personally find it maybe just a tad more difficult than it needs to be at times. I think the book could be half the size and still be maybe a little more effective. It does repeat itself a number of times through the book. I did find it a little psychologically dense. And why? Because the channel was psychologically dense. Every channel material picks up the personality and the consciousness of the channeler. So Course in Miracles definitely picked up what Helen Schuckman was. Every book you read is coming, Charles Fillmore, Course in Miracles, comes from the author's consciousness and their understanding at that moment of what spirit is. But even with these minor challenges, the material has so much good to teach us. I think if the Course had to be summed up in one word for me, it would be forgiveness. That was really the most powerful teaching I got from Course in Miracles in the year and a half I did it. The goal we have on the planet is to be a radiant channel of God's love. And the way we become that channel is for the healing of our lives is to forgive. On page 260 of the text, it says, "Ask not to be forgiven, for this has already been accomplished. Ask rather to learn how to forgive." Well, what is forgiveness? What does it really mean to forgive? It means to bring love to a belief of separation. It doesn't mean to condone what somebody did. It's to take your power back. It's to say, God is my power and you aren't. No matter what you did to me, you don't have that power, as somebody recently said, to live rent-free in my head. You just don't anymore. How do we know we've been forgiven for our past errors? Jesus told the woman taken in adultery, God never condemned her. This is huge. We just read right by that. We have to go back and say, wait a minute. God never condemned us for anything. Ever. We're the ones doing the condemning, so we're the ones who need to forgive. God only sees perfection when God beholds you. God makes absolutely no judgment about your life whatsoever. God hasn't forgiven you because God never condemned you to begin with. No condemnation for God's creation. You condemn a 4-year-old for learning how to walk, how to learn life. No, you love them, you guide them to safety, and you see what they're doing, and you love them. There was never any condemnation for a 4-year-old. There was never any condemnation for you on the planet as you're learning how to do this thing called life. You've never done anything so rotten, hateful, terrible, or bad that could keep the love of God from you. Again, I'm the only one who rejects it. Me, I'm the only one who's done that. We have to learn to forgive ourselves for not being a perfect expression of God yet. We are perfect within and we're letting that unfold. And we have to learn to forgive others for not being perfect in expression yet. When I moved to Kansas City after I was doing supper club work in Myrtle Beach, I decided I was going to do this ministry stuff, and I moved from South Carolina to Kansas City. I lived in New York for over 20 years as an actor and bartender and everything else. And my third day in Kansas City, I came home to find I'd been burglarized. They stole my stereo, they took a whole bunch of other stuff. I never got burglarized in New York City. I had to move to Kansas City, the middle of Missouri, to get burglarized. Of course, my first response as a truth student was to center myself in the peace that nothing can disturb the calm peace of my soul. And then I had the illusion, oh, I don't think I unpacked it yet. So I went to the closet and I knew that I had unpacked it. I just wanted to double check before I got really angry. And then I saw red. Has anybody ever seen red? Oh, I'm a double Scorpio and it takes a while for me to get there. But I saw red. When I had my spiritual awakening, I saw light. Now I was having a not spiritual awakening and I saw red. I was really angry. I wanted to rip somebody's head off. How dare they come into my place and take my stuff? If you've been ripped off, you know the feeling is such a violation. But then, as I was having my hissy fit, a little tiny voice said, forgive. And I said, like hell. Except I didn't use the word hell. I used a word I can't use on Sunday morning. Again, the voice said, forgive. I was just robbed. I'll do it after I kill the SOB. Again, the voice was so clear and so loving and so damn annoying. It said, do you believe me? Do you believe what you've been learning at Unity? You must forgive now. I sat on the floor and I said, I forgive you, you son of a... I forgive you, but how could... I forgive you. I forgive you. I forgive you. And I said that for about 30 seconds, and then I was so filled with love for this person who broke into my home and took my stuff. I love you, child of God, and I forgive you. And I knew that I had totally let that person go, and I got my power back. Even though I had to go buy a new stereo, I let the old one go, and I let the burglar go along with it. The miracle was the restoration of my power to remember love. That no matter the violation that I had gone through, I could love that individual being in error. I was healed of the anger, the fear, my rage at being violated, my illusion that I could be separate from my brother who took my stuff, who came into my place and walked off with it. The ego can't forgive. The ego was mad. But my God self, the Christ within, said, I love and forgive you. That is the biggest miracle we can ever experience, the healing of the illusion that anything of God is separate from me. The healing of the illusion that anything is stronger than God. A disease, a strained relationship, a seemingly insurmountable debt. A person who robs you or rapes you or belittles you or tries to use you in any way, you are powerful. And the power of forgiveness takes your power back. You have within you right now the strength and power of God no matter what anybody has done to you, to your body, to your mind, to your feelings. They can never, ever take your divinity away. Ever. They can't take you away. Even if they ended your life on the planet, you would still survive. You are not your body, you have a body. You are not at fault for being sexually abused as a child. You are not at fault for being different as a child. You are not at fault for anything. You didn't do anything wrong. Do we understand that? You did nothing wrong. We're making our way through the planet because we chose to come to have this advanced spiritual learning. And this is the only place that we could get it at this time. The real miracle of our lives is to wake up to the real me. I am a perfect and wonderful child of God, created as God beholds God's self. Are you willing to see that in you? I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. Breathe into your heart. Are you willing to be healed of the lie that you believed for way too long? That you are weak, that you are powerless, that you are unimportant? Change that. Drop that thought. It is not the truth. Let the miracle of love, the miracle of peace, miracle of joy take hold right now. Make a covenant with the God of your being. I am willing to see my life differently. I am willing to see me differently. I am a miracle of God. I am a miracle of God. Affirm that with me. I am a miracle of God. Again, I am a miracle of God. One more time. I am a miracle of God. Breathe into your heart. This is the only truth we have to remember today. I am a miracle. Express it. As we go into our time of meditation deeper, we sing our way in. In the silence, there's a sacred place, a secret meeting place. In the silence, there is a sacred place, a secret meeting place. Love is there. In the silence, where every color blends and every rainbow ends, good is there. In the light, now you found that you know peace of mind. In the silence, your path is paved in gold, and every dream unfolds. Good is there, peace is there, truth is there, God is there. In the silence we find God, and therefore we find ourselves. Take this moment now to breathe into your heart, to relax, to let go, to allow Spirit to reveal the truth this morning. a living, breathing, thinking, acting miracle of God. Feel that truth. Know that this is the truth. I am whole, strong, and well. This is what we are created to be. No matter what limitations seem to be happening in the body or in the mind, the truth is we are strong. We are powerful. We are good. Therefore, I call forth wholeness and strength on every level, in every cell, every tissue, every part of me. I feel it. I know it. It's who I am. I was created to be successful and prosperous. Divine ideas for new ideas of unfolding good appear now. I know what to do and how to do it. And abundance naturally flows through me. I don't set it right, I see it right. I say yes to prosperity. The light of God shines on my path. I know what to do and how to do it. If I have doubt, I let it go. God is revealing the way. The power of guidance, of light, of love is guiding me perfectly. I know what to do and how to do it. Breathe into that truth. In the silence of our being, we relax, we let go, we know that we know. I am God's miraculous creation. Breathe into your heart. Bring your sense of self back into this room, this place, this time. And bring back with you the realization of your power as a divine being of spirit. Take another deep breath. Let go. We sing our way back with the greatest thing in all my life is loving you.
Is love.
soul to keep. Listen very closely. Listen close to me. Reality is blindness. Life lives in the trees. Life lives in the trees. Breathe it in. Let it out. You know what it's like to live in love. Live in love. Go now, little baby. Go now on your own. Live in peace and kindness. Queen of your own throne. King of your own throne. Breathe it in, let it out. You know what it's like. You know what it's like to live in love. Live in love.